технологии, меняющие мир. То есть здесь, конечно, будет чуть больший фокус именно на технологическом развитии, а также на взаимодействии с нашими западными партнерами. Как последнее выступление Алексея Лоза говорил, я думаю, он достаточно наглядно и интересно на картинках подтвердил еще раз тот тезис, который в последнее время, наверное, стал основным, что тот, кто не вкладывает в технологии, тот, кто их игнорирует, он безнадежно отстает. На самом деле, хотел бы обратить внимание вот на одном из последних слайдов, где показывались разные компании и разные технологии, где они вкладывают в цифровизацию. Вот там был пример Шлюмберже и Халибертон, две сервисные компании, и цифровые технологии. Вот у Шлюмов закрашена половина кружочка, у Халибертона чуть меньше. Я сейчас не буду там спорить или относиться к конкретным цифрам, потому что как оценивать степень цифровизации, я думаю, еще никто не придумал точно научно. Но вот я хотел бы к этому привлечь внимание. То есть мы, те, кто давно работают в отрасли и следят за нефтесервисным рынком, в том числе мировым, все хорошо знают, что последние годы компания Шлюмберже в мировом нефтесервисе начала занимать там, навсегда была одним из лидеров, но сейчас фактически доминирующее положение. И вот эти кружочки два, которые, казалось бы, там где-то внизу слайда находятся, они на самом деле это как раз четко и подчеркивают. То есть, сделав там тот же самый технологический прорыв, вложив в это деньги в свое время, понеся издержки определенно, доведя это до ума, компания имеет возможность сейчас предлагать услугу, которая чуть более точная, чуть более быстрая и дает чуть больше эффекта клиенту. А в современном мире, вот как мы говорили, когда там идет конкуренция за каждый доллар себестоимости, это может иметь ключевое значение. И вот как раз этот пример был проиллюстрирован. Давайте тогда я буду представлять спикеров по мере того, как задаю им вопросы, чтобы не тратить время. Я хотел попросить всех спикеров постараться укладываться там в 5 минут, для того, чтобы мы слишком сильно не перебрали во времени. Первый вопрос хотелось бы задать Раду Алкадири, представителю компании BCG. И здесь такая интересная тема, что мы сегодня в мире наблюдаем исход многих инвесторов из традиционной энергетики. То есть мы видели недавно, компания Norges объявила о том, что она прекращает инвестиции в традиционные нефтегазовые компании, которые не вкладывают в возобновляемую энергетику. И при этом очень большой приток инвестиций в возобновляемую энергетику. Вот вопрос, соответственно, он очень простой и, наверное, напрашивается сам собой. Каким изменениям в мировой энергетической арене приведет вот этот великий инвестиционный исход или начало его?
Good morning. Thank you for the question. I think there's no doubt that as we look forward and as we look to see sort of what the main changes are and what the main changes that will come, they do relate to the challenge of the climate, the challenge of views on climate, social license to operate that comes from that, and fundamentally where we are going to see, or what impact we are going to see that have on policy. There's a phrase that has been used recently, which I think is extremely good, and that is that the world has passed through peak indifference. That fundamentally the issue of climate change is now one that is taken seriously and broadly, and that we have passed a tipping point of disregarding it. And now that may change different levels across the world, but at the end of the day, that sense of the importance of climate change is there. And I think that and the policy implications, the social license to operate implications that come from that are going to be critical. If we are going to go, or if we are going to be able to achieve the 2-degree pathway laid out in the Paris Agreement, it is going to require significant changes in emissions. And that means that the industry, as we know it, is going to face changes. There is a real reputational problem that the industry is facing, the oil and gas industry is facing right now. And it is how you manage that, and you mentioned the investment, I think that is going to be as important for the evolution of the industry over the next 20 years as anything else. There are There is no doubt that renewables are going to be a significant part of the energy mix. The uptake in renewables, the speed of uptake, has been far faster than we have seen in other fuels historically. What renewables have been able to do in terms of their penetration rate has been extraordinary. And the level of the pace of that penetration rate is likely to continue to be very steep. The question is how steep? But I want to go back to something that was mentioned in the last panel, because I think it's important to answering your question and important within the context of this meeting. And that is that there is no doubt that hydrocarbons are anticipated to be a major part of the energy mix. Even under the most transformative scenarios that we've seen put up this morning. And if you look at some of the other transformative scenarios that are there, you are still looking at roughly 50% of the energy mix being oil and gas in the next 20 years. And the decline after that is unlikely to be tremendously steep. So we are looking at oil and gas as being critical for industry, for transport, for power generations, for petrochemicals. And the potential economic disruptions of not having that fuel in the energy mix are as severe, arguably, as the disruptions to the economy that will come from climate change. So these things have to be balanced. And there has to be a context in which oil and gas is encouraged and investment is encouraged. If you look at BCG Center for Energy Impact's forecasts by 2040, the world is going to need roughly 650 billion barrels a day of new oil and gas by 2040. That is a tremendous amount, and that is to meet even conservative forecasts. I have to apologize that the slides don't appear to be working, so I'm using a clicker and getting nowhere. But the point is, in answer to your question, and this is what you can see is critically, just how much oil and gas is needed. If you go on to the next slide, one of the things that is evident is, let's say, this massive investment. So the question is really twofold. Where's the investment going to come from, and what does this mean for national oil and gas companies and for the states that rely on that oil and gas? And in looking at that, I think you have to consider two things again. One is, as was mentioned before, the regulatory environment, the policy environment, and how much oil and gas companies, national oil and gas companies, are going to be incentivized to keep investing. And if you think about it from a shareholder point of view, oil and gas companies have a different shareholder prerogative. For national oil and gas companies, the prerogative is to monetize the resources. The prerogative is to get the maximum amount that can be gained for those resources and feed that revenue through a variety of means into government coffers. So the shareholder imperative differs, I think, from IOCs. But nonetheless, that is still going to require this environment in which oil and gas is still encouraged. And that comes to the question of how national oil companies compete and how they set out this future. The issue that you mentioned before about how do you create the environment that encourages the long-term investment. And I think for national oil and gas companies, that comes down to two things. You have to be the cheapest producer of oil and gas, so you have to reduce the cost. But critically, I think, in this environment, and this is where technology comes in, the issue of being cleanest. It is that emissions issue, and introducing technology not just into the process and into the monitoring and into sort of various elements of cost cutting. It is looking at technology and seeing what technology can be brought in to fundamentally reduce emissions and ultimately make emissions down the value chain from oil and gas neutral or in some ways negative. Now, we've seen really, even in the last 6 months, new technologies that have been described, new technologies that are being used in terms of capturing carbon, in terms of how carbon can be used in the production process and therefore can be really removed from the environment, removed from the atmosphere and used as part of a circular economy. And that is critical. And I think if you look at it from the perspective of how a company like BCG looks at it, it really is in 3 areas. There is the technology in terms of the systems, the technology that we've mentioned in terms of how you manage the systems of production. There is the process of production, and again, how technology can be used fundamentally to manage emissions there and to ensure that you have this continuous clean production. And finally, the organization that comes around that. I think all of the discussions in terms of big data, all of the discussions in terms of artificial intelligence, all of the discussion in terms of being able to manage monitoring, etc., all comes down to that. But the fundamental goal will be cheapest and cleanest. And the NOCs that can do that will be producing the last barrel. And that fundamentally should be the goal that they look to do.
Thank you very much. I will just have a short follow-up question. Я сейчас задам небольшой вопрос. I'll say it in English so that this may not be a popular view, but don't you think that just when the emerging market companies and markets have caught up with the technological advance of the developed markets, they're being dictated new rules, and being forced to buy technologies which they don't yet produce to make them, which makes them less competitive. Но суть вопроса просто есть это, что тот, кто регулирует требования, собственно говоря, и устанавливает эти требования, он, естественно, контролирует, какие технологии используются. И как только развивающиеся рынки, собственно говоря, достигли технологического уровня, который нужен, чтобы там добывать традиционные запасы, их разрабатывать, тут же появляются новые требования, которые насаждаются и которые говорят, что они обязаны теперь взять, чтобы сделать добычу угля, нефти и газа более чистой там, по определенным заданным критериям. Вот не является ли это неким, опять же, неконкурентным методом борьбы и не насаждает ли это повышение себестоимости для развивающихся рынков?
My grandmother used to tell me that the world isn't a fair place.
True.
And I think that's very true in terms of business, and I think that's very true in terms of the sector that we're looking at. The realities of the sector are that public opinion is changing, investment appetite is changing, and attitudes towards the role of oil and gas is changing. So yes, in one sense, as companies have caught up in the developing world, they now face a new paradigm. But I think, again, I go back to my comment in terms of what the objective can be for some of these oil and gas companies that are catching up and for some of these countries that are catching up. There is a tendency to equate fossil fuels, hydrocarbons in particular, with emissions, and for good reason. I think the challenge that the developing world may face is to be able to invest and find the technology and find the right policy conditions to be able to demonstrate that that linkage is not necessarily always going to be there, that fundamentally you can come back with new technologies and implement it. And the benefits, the financial benefits under those circumstances, particularly if you found a situation where IOCs, whose stakeholder position and whose shareholder position is arguably more vulnerable in terms of looking for the investment required, may start to be forced to move off in different directions. That leaves a competitive space for the developing world companies that they can actually move into. So it may not be fair, but if approached through this lens of cleanest and cheapest, there might actually be a bigger opportunity and less competition than there is now.
Спасибо большое, но честный ответ. Honest answer. Знаете, мне как-то показали недавно, года 2 назад, рекламу из 60-х или 70-х из одного из нефтегазовых журналов одной крупной компании на тот момент, где фотография айсберга, ну и подпись, что в день мы производим достаточно энергии, чтобы растопить там половину арктических льдов. Вот сегодня я думаю, что такая реклама, конечно, привела бы, наверное, к банкротству компании, вот в том ключе, как раз, о котором вы говорите. Хотя факт остается фактом, что энергии, конечно, производится достаточно, чтобы растопить много льдов. Вот, Одман, следующий вопрос для вас, он тоже касается технологий. И в первую очередь, наверное, как компания Rystad Energy, которая как бы следит за добычей во всем мире, как достаточно ее качественно моделирует, хотелось бы спросить, сколько еще нам наблюдать рост добычи сланцевой нефти в Штатах и при текущих технологиях?
Thank you very much. I will try to answer that through my presentation. So we can start. There is my slide. Thank you very much. I'm not going to start to talk about supply and demand balances and price as such, but I will add in the beginning, as the gentleman before me did, we need more volumes of liquids in the future to meet the demand. And moreover, so if you consider the real decline from current production, we need to add more than 30 million barrels coming from new production to meet demand in 2025. So that obviously will have to translate into a lot of work for the oilfield service side. And the question is, where is this new production coming from? The answer is up there already. We believe that shale and offshore will be key to deliver to meet this demand. We are now looking at potential production from these sources in 2025 with the break-even prices. As you can see, and as the header states, shale has won the battle of barrels. And looking at the offshore side, we have lost some of the potential to deliver in 2025 because we have delayed and we have cancelled some of these projects. Shale, on the other hand, have increased their position. But what is common for both, which is one of my key messages here today, is that we have lowered and retained low break-even prices. So we are competitive for these two guys on the liquid source, but moreover, offshore is competitive to shale. That is important to remember, as we often hear about shale being the new kid on the block, always these low break-even prices, but that is also the fact now for offshore. And going into shale in more depth is that, and if you come from the offshore camp, if you will, when you try to arrest shale as much as you want on different bottlenecks, parameters, or metrics, that has proven pretty difficult. And as we know, shale has really performed well and growing more than anybody could expect. And in Rystad Energy, we have been of the most bullish to predict the growth in shale, and even we have failed to come up to those high numbers that we prove afterwards. And that tells me one thing: we should not underestimate shale going forward either, because if there are some bottlenecks, they will solve them. And in that regards, offshore, we need to stay competitive and work with the E&P side to make sure that we have a role to play, and then I'm sure we will be able to take part on the liquids arena in the future as well. And if you say that shale has improved performance and been impressive, I think the same goes for offshore, being the more mature side of the business. It's pretty amazing what the E&P companies have been able to do now in the downturn to cut costs, not only on the unit side, but of course on the structural side, where most of the costs have been saved. So now when we talk to the drillers, maybe we should state that, and we do state, we are not coming back to $600,000 in rig rates. I think all of us start to realize that, and maybe also 500 is the new 300. So maybe $300,000 a day for a rig rate on a mobile offshore drilling unit is economically viable, thinking about the fact that the supplier side also compressed their costs during this period of time. Because of costs coming down and oil is relatively high, we also now know that the E&P companies have more money than they ever had before. Last year, the E&P side had a record high free cash flow. So is the story this year, even at oil at $60 to $70. And it's much more robust environment this time. We know that all the break-evens, more or less, for the new projects are below $60. So what we would like the E&P side to do is, of course, spend more money on incremental exploration, more FIDs to be taken. And if we now switch to the next slide, we know that there is a strong correlation between the free cash flow and the ability to spend money offshore on the new CapEx. The overall CapEx position increase has not happened. But what we do see, what is the slide is representing here now, is an increased appetite for new projects. So we now see an increased number of projects being FID'd offshore, as well as money being deployed into this new field commitment. So although the number of projects grew from around 35 to 45 into 17, and then from 40 or 60 to 90 actually into 18, 50% increase on the number count, we don't see the same increase in dollars spent. And that is because we now see, as the upper right pie chart tells us, it's a bigger share of dollars being spent on the subsea tieback arena, more so than the big platform developments and the standalone new fields. So through the cost compression, we see now a downsizing from a platform to an FPSO and further to a subsea tieback. The interesting thing there is that we now look at a shorter cycle nuance of the offshore industry and not looking at it as just a long cycle. And with the subsea tieback, you're maybe able to recover your investment after 4 or 5 years, as opposed to a platform where you have 20 years to get your money back. Then if you also start to look at all the incremental activity, being a workover, intervention, or an infill well on existing production, we are really looking at short-term duration work, and we start to resemble the nature and dynamics of the shale industry. So if you are on the E&P side, and if you are afraid that peak demand for oil is coming towards you in 2030, maybe you are now looking to stay in your backyard, take care of your existing production, and get your money paid back in 12 months or 18 months, and you dread more of those 20-year term commitments, if that is the situation. We also know that the customer share is different. There is a smaller portion of these dollars being spent from the major companies, and a bigger chunk is now going to the smaller E&P companies. Some of these projects have not been fit for purpose for the bigger guys, but those smaller E&P players can see the value here, as well as some speculative and some new entrants coming in to take their share of the market and also revitalize and get some stranded projects to life, in that sense also contributing to growing the value chain and making this a better environment. So what is a recovery? We know we are on the upcycle, as you can see on this chart. We're getting more activity per dollar spent. What is the recovery? Is it the rig rates coming up? Is it spending? Is it activity or revenue? Some would probably argue it's a combination of all, and that all of these things need to be in place to call it a recovery. What is not going to happen, and we can change to the next slide, please. We are not getting back to the spending levels that we saw in the past heydays of 2012, 13, 14. That is something we are pretty confident on. But that, having said that, we know that activity is coming back more so than the spending. And also we know that there are some regions and pockets of demand for oilfield service activity where you will have tighter markets and better markets. And now we're looking at the demand for floater drilling units. Those are drill ships and semi-subs. And again, to highlight the recovery, you can see the harsh in the dark blue, the benign UDW in the purple, being those that come back the most, considering the heydays that you had in the past. If you are in the benign midwater, you are coming back to 50% of where you left off before the downturn. So obviously we get more activity per dollar spent, but they're also more efficient. So some of the paradox for the service side when you talk to them have been that They are so efficient, of course, so they drill themselves out of work, being too good at their job, basically. But then again, there are work to be had, and if you are worrying about oversupply and capacity on the service side, you should not worry too much about that. You should worry about being the best guy in the class and having the best technology advantage, and you will get a job for your service. That's the moral of the story. And I also had to highlight this chart a little more. As we now see the harsh market for the drilling sector, that's where you are now having the recovery. When that rolls over, we will look at the DP market, the 6th and 7th generation drill ship, which we believe is the second tighter spot, if you will, with the higher rig rates. But still, 300-400 is the new paradigm than the 500-600. And I guess also we need to now start to look a little beyond, regardless of which expectation you have when it comes to the change to the green side of things and the green energy. But talking to some vessel companies now, they are exploring some of them, some opportunities going into the green side. We have windmills that needs to be constructed. You can use some vessels there as well. So at the same time, staying competitive where we are, we should also look a little beyond the next 5-10 years to see where is the next source growth coming and how can we play a part of that. Thank you very much.
Спасибо большое. Хотелось перейти к Эрнесту теперь, как представитель, собственно говоря, европейского бизнеса. Хотелось бы задать вам достаточно прямолинейный вопрос. Где лимит санкционного давления, когда включится прагматизм? И, собственно говоря, не боятся ли европейские компании потерять долю рынка не только в России из-за такого давления, но и, собственно говоря, породить волну определенной реакции, ну то есть это неизбежно, от других стран, которые сегодня покупают европейское, американское оборудование, но, очевидно, не хотят быть в зависимости и не хотят иметь даже там определенного риска, что когда-то им может кто-то диктовать, с кем торговать, с кем нет. То есть вот нет ли таких опасений и где лимит? Спасибо.
Спасибо вам большое, Павел Юрьевич. Не знаю, хотел бы поблагодарить за ваш вопрос, но не могу поблагодарить. Но позвольте, во-первых, сказать преимущество, которое, наверное, вот импортозамещение, да, дает мне тоже такое преимущество, что, наверное, считаю себя даже в удобном положении выступать на русском языке. Ну, работаем, живем в России, все работаем в России. Кстати, и если честно скажу, можно сказать, что на мою память, в принципе, сказать, что компании, которые покидали Россию за последние 7 лет, ну, в 2014 году уже, скажем, 6 лет, в принципе, достаточно мало. Почему, на мой взгляд? Ну, потому что, на самом деле, смотрите, давайте посмотрим стоимость барреля, да, доказано, запас в России есть, очевидно, есть международный стандарт, который там принимается в средний, если даже мы говорим по оншору, на суше, да, приобретение хорошие активы в России, в принципе, в которой есть логистика, уже построена и достаточно часто большая инвестиция была сделана, это на уровне 1,3-1,5, может, доллар за баррель. Это уникально. Это на уровне даже, наверное, 2-3 раза дешевле, чем любой страна, которая здесь недалеко, Норвегия и в UK. Если берем еще даже, говорим о OPEX и CAPEX, которые необходимы для достижения вот, добычи, это тоже приближается $32-33 за баррель. OPEX и CAPEX заказы баррель. В принципе, если чисто коммерческой точки зрения, это уникально. И это мне, на мой взгляд, доказательство, насколько важно, в принципе, элемент преимущества, которое получает Россия в отношении некоторых других стран. Даже если мы говорим наши соседи там Европа, да, которые, в принципе, за 50 лет покупают достаточно много энергоресурсов. Да, все понимаем и спорим в отношении, насколько Россия зависит от экспорта нефтегаза и природных ресурсов. Да, ну, 60% федеральный бюджет зависит от этого, 30% ВВП, наверное, зависит от экспорта нефтегаза и других ресурсов. Но с другой стороны, на самом деле, если говорить о том, что является он важным и стратегическим регионом, конечно, он является. Если даже сказать, берем последний наш вот опыт по Северный поток-2, да, санкции есть, они мешают, без сомнений, об этом никто не может сказать, что он помогает. С другой стороны, понятно, что это создал такой новый курс для России. Очевидно, что импортозамещение, спецконтракт, он действительно, он, как сказать, работает. Наверное, он не является идеальным, даже по количеству специальный инвестконтракт были подписаны чуть больше 100 контрактов. В рамках идет определенная реформа в рамках правительства Российской Федерации в отношении улучшения вот этого стимула. Кстати, если вы видите, создался действительно такой элемент открытой конкуренции между все регионы. Да, создается действительно уникальный налоговый стимул для тех, которые хотят участвовать на российский рынок. Этот период, на мой взгляд, будет иметь определенное окно временное. Конечно, для всех такое не будет не всегда. И поэтому есть возможность сказать, давайте понимать, любые оншор нету, санкций мы будем дальше работать, все европейские компании так и считают, что это рынок уникальный. Если даже мы берем даже последние тренды за последние 2 года, да, товарооборот, как вы знаете, Европа тяжело спускается, минус 30%, экспорт потеряет практически 50-60 миллиардов евро экспорт из Европы сюда в Россию. Я не говорю, что это, конечно, это была причина только санкций, но, конечно, санкции плюс, наверное, слабый рубль, наверное, спрос чуть-чуть это добавился. Ну, в какой-то степени это оценивается 500 000 потери рабочей силы в Европе, потери огромное количество по экспорту. И вот как раз вот эта новая модель, которая, ну, мне лично очень нравится, это модель импортозамещения, да. При том, что мы не говорим о том, что делать там with Europe, давайте сделаем совместно компанию. Совместный инструмент, он работает. Да. Немецкие, российские совместные предприятия в России работают больше 3000. Да. Это хороший инструмент. Налоговый стимул уникальный. И при том, что мы сейчас в рамках, мы не говорим только о возможности экспорта, даже оборудования, сервис или там любой, не только в рамках Российской Федерации, мы говорим теперь о новом раскладе, это Евросоюз, евразийский рынок. Это огромный рынок, больше почти 200 миллионов населения. Если даже брать нефтегазовый сервис, где только в России инвестиции в 2018 году 30 миллиардов долларов, а если берем еще Казахстан, Россию и так далее, огромный потенциал. Поэтому, если честно скажу, вот придерживаем такой курс, что все здесь ответственно берет на самом деле, скажем так, больше в какой-то степени Европа. Да? Европа должен понимать и надеемся, что это будет отражено на следующие выборы, которые будут в мае месяце, сейчас через месяц, должен выбирать. Ну как мы можем быть за 50 лет стать самые лучшие партнеры и друзья России, а потом в какой-то степени все кардинально меняется. История пишется до такой длинной, долгосрочного плана. Там нельзя переписать историю за последние 2-3 года. Намечены поставки, гарантированные поставки. Это хороший инструмент, долгосрочный контракт поставки газа в Европу. Она работала 50 лет. И там было как раз найдено вот в рамках этого контракта баланса ответственности. Кто отвечает за и берет на себя риск рынки, кто берет на себя рынок добычи и разведка. Это работало. И как раз Европа, которая перед такой достаточно тяжелый элемент кризис, где уровень добычи падает в ближайшие 5 лет на 70 миллиардов кубометров в год, откуда будут идти это? Давайте, если с точки зрения, чисто коммерческой точки зрения, да, есть определенный маршрут, там доказано от разных аналистов, Северный поток-2 является, он более конкурентоспособен в сравнении с другими маршрутами. Да, он является. Да, есть преимущество чисто коммерческой точки зрения. Слава Богу, даже если говорить по Северный поток-2, выиграла более такой прагматичный подход. Нужен газ, есть газ рядом, опыт работы, и, слава Богу, достаточно длинный. Поэтому я думаю, что если слышат голос наши члены нашей европейской компании, они подтвердят надежности, стабильности, мы будем раньше и дальше работать вместе. И, кстати, самое главное, вкладывать деньги. Вот если мы берем даже вот части R&D, да, вот по направлению, в этом направлении мы должны огромную работу сделать, потому что здесь это тема безопасности, это тема вопроса окружающей среды, это тема развитие технологий совместно, да, здесь в отношении вот это, я говорю даже по части обучения, мне кажется, надо еще большой, конечно, совместно работу делать. Если берем огромный уровень инвестиций, которые R&D делается в мир, это на уровне 780 миллиардов долларов инвестиций только по R&D. Из этих 780 миллиардов, которые частный сектор вкладывает, в Штаты вкладывают 400 миллиардов. Больше половины тратится одна страна. А Китай следующий 300 миллиардов. Вот здесь огромный потенциал. 1 миллион 300 тысяч новых патентов выпускает в 2018 году Китай, 600 тысяч выпускает Штат Америка. В России еще, к сожалению, на низкий уровень, на 40 тысяч. Вот эта технологическая цепочка, уровней развития. В третьей стороны, есть тоже хороший пример. Это не только мы говорим о такой баланс, скажем так, зеркальный элемент сотрудничества не только в России. Российские компании, Российская Федерация выпускает иностранные партнеры здесь, а мы будем работать дальше вместе в третьей стране. Да, если берем даже один конкретный пример по Египету, да, ЗОР – это уникальный проект, где работает итальянская Эни, работает Роснефть, работает BP и другие компании. Поэтому это не ограничено. Вот глобализация допускала вот нам не только финансовый поток, и также технология и совместную работу. Поэтому здесь, очевидно, в рамках нашей ассоциации мы видим как стремление к только улучшению наших отношений. А то, что, к сожалению, касается санкций, ну, санкции есть, к сожалению, все, но будем дальше работать. Я, на самом деле, не вижу никакой панический эффект от наших партнеров. Спасибо вам большое.
Спасибо большое. Спасибо большое. Давайте зададим сейчас вопрос Стефану. Siemens. Siemens, в принципе, компания, которая находится во многом в авангарде использования технологий в промышленности, как бы и индустрии 4.0. Siemens была одной из первых компаний, которая начала это активно продвигать. Ну вот и, собственно говоря, поэтому хотелось бы спросить, какие наиболее актуальные изменения в области нефтегазового машиностроения вы видите, ну и технологических трендов. Ну, просил бы еще раз там сейчас попытаться 5 минут уложиться, потому что у нас уже время истекло. Спасибо.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, at first I will say we have a big change in the oil and gas industry, and I heard from a lot of speakers regarding digitalization. I think this is a big change. And can you go to the next slide? Yes, you know we have 5 big megatrends worldwide, from the globalization, urbanization, climate change, and demographic change. But digitalization is a part of the technology part here. And we have 44 satellites now in the Internet of Things. But in the next year, we have around about 50 billion equipments connected to the Internet and bring everyday data in the network, and it is growing again. Please, in the next slide, you can see. Next slide. You can see the 4 industry revolutions. And it's clear from the past side as we came from the mechanical side and changed now in the software part. And I think the 4th industrial revolution is not a revolution, it's an evolution. In my understanding, this is the next step for automation. And that is what I will tell you here. It's really the next step because we have a chance to bring data together. And on the next slide, you can see. Please change to the next slide. You can see also the history of Siemens. Siemens is 171 years old, and we think we are a pioneer in the innovation technology. And from the mechanical to grow in 2016 to a new cloud technology, that means it's an operation system from Siemens for all the industries, and that it's new to develop and invest in this area. And on the next slide, you can see, please change. You can see a lot of invest. Siemens invests 5.6 in R&D every year. We have around about 40,000 special engineers for R&D, and also parallelly we invest 8.5 billion to buy software companies, software startups, companies acquisition. Our goal is to bring all the software together to an integrated engineering and integrated operation system, to bring it on one platform, and that is why on one phase we bought a lot of software companies and also developed himself. Interesting is now Siemens is place number 4 in Europe for the software company and place number 9 worldwide as a software company. And this is a new way for us. And on the next slide, please change. You discussed this point. The oil price go down in the last years, and we have much more flexible oil price between $60–80, sometimes also lower. But on the other side, you have more capital costs and also operation costs. That brings us to the discussion to optimize the CAPEX, the LOPEX, also the recovery, because we also integrated enhanced oil recovery programs and improve the HSE and quality. And that brings us to the discussion here for digitalization as a game changer in the future. In the next slide, you can see an analyze the digital maturity index from McKinsey, and this slide shows the chance for the oil and gas industry. The position of the oil and gas industry is low, but this gives us a chance to invest in digitalization, to optimize our programs, and to save money and to bring a higher efficiency in the oil and gas world. In the next slide, we have an option to learn also from another industries. For example, here for the transition industry, for predictive maintenance, or for the marine industry, for remote monitoring, also for the automotive industry, for improved cycle time, and from the healthcare industry for image analytics. These industries are growing with the digital world, and the oil and gas industry can use the technology and transfer in the oil and gas world. Please change to the next slide. The S-curve from McKinsey give us an orientation for the next level, the second S-curve. And that's mean to invest in analytic systems and the process digitalization and robotic automation, and also new business models to innovate these models. And we can start to do it now for the next level, for the next S-curve here, to create a new cycle of innovation management and to bring it technology life cycle much more faster here. Please change to the next slide. A main point here is industry Internet of Things platform, but in combination with the edge computing. And understanding is we have a local computing, we have a cloud computing, but also to develop edge computing. You have to design your own strategy and infrastructure, and important is you also can make the field much more intelligenter on the place with the edge computing, and to decide which data you will transfer to the cloud computing. And important is you have a good connection in the future, and you need 3 different disciplines. That means in the future the engineers, we have special engineers for analytic, you have engineers for connecting, to design an open ecosystem, and also engineers for standardizations, and that's it's a new world to bring it together. Please go to the next slide. In the digital world, you have a lot of options. Digitalization is a lot of new technology. Blockchain is a new technology. Artificial intelligence. Platform business, drones is a new technology. Also big data and management. But I think for the oil and gas industries, the digital twin, a really important new technology. A digital twin, a center piece of digital future, I think. And to go really from the virtual world in the real world, from the integrated engineering and the integrated operating, to use the chance to develop different scenarios and also to chance to simulate your business here. And on the next slide, I will show you, please change. I show you 3 processes with a digital twin and 4 digital twin. You start with the process of concept and feed. You bring the first data in the system and develop your business, your plant, and go in the design and building process. And after that you go in the intelligent digital twin as an operation and maintain process. This is a cycle, and you develop these data, and you have 4 digital twins. The first is you have in the process a digital twin. The second one is a plant digital twin with a 3D view, for example, for walk inside and so on. You have an intelligent monitoring system, and also for the diagnostic predictive maintenance is also from the equipment a digital twin. And that's this cycle gives you also an orientation and a chance to build a new continuous improvement program and give you new orientation for more standardization in your plans. Please go to the next slide. Important is requires data persistence. You can learn and bring more relevant data on one place, but that is not enough. On the other side is when you will develop a digital twin, you need the right knowledge and you need the people who understand the physical, because you get the data from the sensoric and you have to understand that are the right data, yes or no. That is why it is important when you will develop a digital twin, you have different levels. One of the levels, the low level, is a digital twin in a 3D world, okay, including a walk inside, for example. But the next level is to integrate an artificial intelligence system. And we practice this. Please go to the next slide. Yes, we practice this, and that is why digitalization is change everything. And on the next slide, please change. You can see some examples. Here some examples for a new 3D world, walk inside, and also the dashboarding systems in just-in-time information and simulation programs. That is also a chance to optimize the training programs for the employees and so on, for a higher HSC program and so on. Please go to the next slide. Every company has to decide what is the level in the dashboarding system. You have the data, you have to decide of the quality of the data, but what is the level for the function details or for the plant operation or the plant performance or the corporate KPIs. This is a system. You have to describe the data and the dashboarding and from one database. That is a new way. And on the next slide, I will show you examples in the oil and gas industry. Please change. Here 4 examples. On the left side is a remote operation center in the offshore oil platform in Norway. You can reduce 30% of the people on the offshore platform and much more, 30% saving and 30% of increased recovery. That is one example. On the right side is an example from an onshore field, a complete dashboarding for 10 onshore oil fields to centralize the information. On the left side up, you can see an artificial intelligence system for ESP pumps. This is a predictive maintenance idea. You can see 40 days before what the pump is doing, when the pump is down and why. And you have a clear decision system for the operator. And the last example here, artificial intelligence system in the oil field with the IoT-based system for an operation workflow. This is a practice. We learn these systems now and develop more information to a new high efficiency digital oil field. Please go to the next slide. This example is also a trend in the technology. I spoke about standardization. Standardization in the oil field and also modularization is a main point, because this example are unmanned plants, and this is a trend to organize the technology with unmanned in the oil fields and to get information centralized. Or another example, to reduce the commissioning time. In this example, you need 6 days to install these models, and there are an automatic commissioning program, and the system now, the equipment and the models here, because you have a really high standard in this field. Please go to the next slide. Sometimes you have brown fields, and you can't invest so much in these brownfields, but you need informations. And this is a low-cost well survival idea. It's only a box with a camera, and the camera can read the exciting gaukes and read the information to transfer the information over app to a central control room. It's a really easy technology. It's a low-cost basic. Please go to the next slide. Additive manufacturing is also a part of digital world, and you can use the digital twin in this world. And please go to the next slide. I will show you 2 examples. From a turbine here, you can print a burner or a blades for turbines, and that is new. And I will show you the added values in the next slide. Please go to the next slide. And that it's new, I think. It's a game changer. If you dream, you can print it. And you can optimize the turbines. And you know, 1% to optimize in the turbine is a lot of money. And that it's for us a new way to build a complete center for additive manufacturing. On the next slide, please change it. You can see the chance. You can develop more prototyping with different scenarios. You can print spare parts for repair or to integrate it in manufacturing. Please go to the next slide. And that is a chance to optimize your R&D, your design for engineering, to optimize the energy efficiency, and also what we will do to integrate it in complete workshops, this system. But another way is globally. You don't transfer in future the material, you transfer data to a print center worldwide and have much more shorter times and efficiency for spare parts and so on in the rotating equipment area. Please go to the next slide. Yeah, thank you very much.
Спасибо большое. Мне кажется, интересный очень доклад, презентация. Такая глобально все описывающая. Давайте тогда перейдем к Питеру. Питер, ну, поскольку уже время совсем поджимает, быстрый вопрос. Какую стратегию выбрать традиционным, скажем так, странам, которые зависимы сегодня от традиционных секторов экономики, от того же нефтегаза, добычи ресурсов? Вот. Как, собственно говоря, диверсифицироваться и какая эффективная стратегия в современном мире?
Yes, thank you very much. I'll try to do it in half time. That's what we are asked from our customers to implement in half the time earlier. I'm not sure whether I can have the next slide, please. This is not working. Just give me the next one. I'll go fairly quickly. Schneider Electric is the leader in the digital transformation of energy management and automation. That's what you bring together in an oil and gas plant. I think you have 3 things you want to drive forward. You want to bring down your CO2 footprint, number 1. You want to increase the safety. And thirdly, you want to increase productivity. That's what we're trying to do on a global basis. And the oil and gas market is the most important end market and the largest end market for Schneider Electric. If I can have the next slide. There's a little bit of repetition what my colleague said earlier, but here is the difference. He said that digital is in the future. I think the bad news is, or the good news for many, digital is already today. If we see the deployment of artificial intelligence, big data, and the Internet of Things, we can see that at any of our customers already majorly implemented in the oil and gas industry. And we feel they are far ahead of many of the other industries like automotive or any of the more discrete industries. Obviously, cybersecurity has become a major threat, and you can see that 60% of the businesses will already have suffered respectively because of cybersecurity. So that's an offer that we have with our customer to work and with local partners, because cybersecurity is something extremely local. So in Russia, we're working together, for example, with Kaspersky Lab and others to do that. On my next slide, you can also see some of the confusion that I've seen in some of the faces when I was looking earlier. As a head of the business in the oil and gas market, of course, there are all the technological trends that you and buzzwords that you see, like cloud, IoT, business process management, big data, analytics, and so forth. That paired, of course, with what's going on in the market, that has not become much easier. And of course, today, unfortunately, the number is missing. 58% of energy company leaders admit that they have an issue keeping up with technology as it arises. Now, we're a technology company, and I can tell you sometimes I have problems to follow what's happening almost on a monthly basis. If we move on, of course, also in Schneider Electric, we have come up with a very simple architecture that we're trying to bring energy management and automation together at the plants to reduce the CO2 footprint and also reduce the energy usage. That's very important in an energy intensive industry like the oil and gas industry, but also connect the shop floor all the way to the top floor with IoT technologies. And then if I could have the next and maybe the next slide. There is animation. Just go forward to the next. What's very important these days is the deployment of a software. Now, Schneider Electric has over the last couple of years acquired quite a few software companies, similar like our colleagues in Siemens in the discrete space. We're the leader in process automation and hybrid automation with a software company called Aviva that we've listed in the UK market. It's one of the 4 largest tech companies that does software in the process market. If I can have the next slide, please. And of course, that very well fits into the oil and gas market, because you want to do the process design earlier, where you go into process flow charts, then of course build your plant on a 3D environment, go into the operations, where usually 2/3 of the money is spent after the capital expenditures over the next 30-40 years when the plant is running, where you want to optimize and get the most out of the assets that you have. And with that, it is crucial actually that you bring these together. Can I have the next slide? The next one, just to make it a little bit quicker. The next slide, please. Right, this is what I was saying. In the design world, where you create your end products from a chemical perspective, bring all the raw materials together, the pressures, the temperatures, and so forth, and design this into a plant, and then 2/3 of the expenditures are on the operated side. Now, if you look what the challenges are really today that our customers are facing, and that's true in particular where you have a lot of built infrastructure, if we look on the next slide, is that you create a digital model of your factory that is as designed, as constructed, and usually that's done by the EPC, and here comes the challenge. How do you make sure, if it's handed over, that your digital model is okay, and that it is also as operated and as modified, because that will allow you to reduce your carbon footprint, it will allow you to have a higher productivity, and it will allow you for more safety. We believe it's only possible if you have an integrated engineering platform that we can offer through Aviva. And I'll give you just 2 or maybe 3 cases of our customers here in Russia and globally, how they have used that and also come up with sizable benefits. At the end of the day, I think it's about bringing the overall cost down of your equipment. If we were to go to the next slide, this is a customer in Russia, an oil and gas provider that is extremely dynamically growing and has a couple of refining stations and fuel stations. And we engaged in a project with them to come up with an integrated control and safety operator training system, and had reduced the project time by 4 months. I mean, that means incremental productivity at the end of the day for the customer. Now, earlier, one of the colleagues mentioned another project, which I have on the next slide, is the largest gas reservoir in the Mediterranean, the Zohr in Egypt, and it's a joint venture of Eni, Rosneft, and BP, and some others are in there. Now, this project was delivered through Schneider Electric in record time. So originally 5 years planned to the first day of gas. We were able to cut this down with what I said earlier to 2.3 years. And you can calculate for yourself what kind of advantage that brings to the customer. A third example is when you really truly have the digital twin established. We have a customer in the North Sea in Europe that runs the oil platforms totally manless for 4 weeks. Then he sends a crew for 2 weeks, and then he runs it again totally manless for another 4 weeks. Several oil platforms established there with Statoil, for example. So a couple of true examples. And we've worked with an auditor together to look at what are the real benefits you can get into brownfields and in greenfields. And we've looked at 300 projects that we've done. And I'll show you the results on the next page, if I can have it, which is my last one. Next page, please. So you can see in respect to energy efficiency, with our customers, these are 300 real-life projects that we have audited with a third party, an average energy saving of 24%, energy saving of up to 85% possible. That shows you the spread of what we have. In respect to productivity, an average of 30% productivity on the CapEx side and 28 on the OpEx side. The maximum savings here with the large numbers you can see. Of course, reliability and safety is the #1 concern of our customers in the oil and gas industry. From that perspective, equipment availability increased by 22% in average, and 50 on top of it, and workforce safety brought up north of 20% by deployment of also digital tools. And then the CO2 footprint, which is a major concern in the industry, a major concern of many of our customers, bringing the average down by 20% or up to 50%. So technology, digitization is there, it's deployed in Russia with many of our customers, and the savings and the benefits are, I think, extremely clear. Thank you very much.
Спасибо большое. Мне кажется, достаточно интересные все доклады были, которые дали комплексную картинку того, что происходит. Я думаю, из этого можно четко сделать выводы, что без технологий, собственно говоря, двигаться дальше невозможно. Потому что если ваш конкурент будет иметь скорость реакции в 2 раза быстрее вас и капитальные затраты, операционные затраты на 30-60% ниже, ну, то, собственно говоря, это слишком большое преимущество, чтобы можно было наверстать, кроме как чудом. Поэтому я думаю, что это хорошая основа для тех корректировок, которые мы собираемся там вносить в энергостратегию, для той работы, которую планируем делать в цифровизации. Но мы рассчитываем, что как бы эту работу нам удастся реализовать совместно с сектором, с экспертным сообществом. Поэтому, коллеги, спасибо большое всем собравшимся, спасибо большое всем спикерам и спасибо.